Good morning, friends. Today we are going to discuss about a novel, A Room of One's Own. A Room of One's Own is an extended essay by Virginia Woolf. And now let us see the introduction of an author in this novel. Life of Virginia Woolf. The original name of Virginia Woolf was Adeline Virginia Stephen. Virginia Woolf was born on 28th January 1882 in South Kensington, London, England. She was an English writer, novelist, essayist, publisher, feminist and critic. She was considered as one of the most important modernists in 20th century. She was the seventh child in a blended family of 8. Her father, Leslie Stephen, was an eminent literary figure and the first editor of the Dictionary of National Biography. Her mother, Julia Jackson, was died when Woolf was 13 years old. That made Woolf have several nervous breakdowns. While the boys in the family received college educations, but the girls were homeschooled in English, classics and Victorian literature. Virginia Woolf and her sister was educated at home in their father's library, where Virginia also met her famous friends who included G. E. Moore and E. M. Forster. Young Virginia Woolf soon fell deep into the world of literature. As a young girl, Virginia was curious, light-hearted and playful. However, early traumas darkened her childhood, including being sexually abused by her half-brothers. In 1895, at the age of 13, she also had lost her mother and sister. This made her first mental breakdown. While leading with her personal losses, Woolf continued her studies in German. Encouraged by her father, Woolf began writing professionally in 1900. In 1904, her father died from stomach cancer, which caused Woolf to have another emotional mental breakdown. After their father's death, Woolf's siblings sold the family home in Hyde Park Gate and purchased a house in the Bloomsbury area of London. During this period, Virginia met several members of Bloomsbury Group. So after 8 years after her father's death, Virginia Woolf married Leonard Woolf, a brilliant young writer and critic from Cambridge. They shared a passionate love for one another for the rest of their lives. Before her marriage, Virginia began writing on her first novel and published The Voyage Out in 1950. So next, let us see the famous works of Virginia Woolf. Mrs. Dalloway in 1925, To the Lighthouse in 1927, Orlando in 1928, A Room of One's Own in 1929 and The Waves in 1931. The novel Orlando was a breakthrough for Woolf, who received critical praise for the groundbreaking work as well as a newfound level of popularity. Death of Virginia Woolf. In her personal life, Virginia Woolf suffered bouts of deep depression. Before her death, she left a note for her husband Leonard and for her sister Vanessa. Then Virginia Woolf walked to the river Ouse, put a large stone in her pocket and drowned herself. Virginia Woolf died on March 28, 1949 near Rodmell, Sussex in England. So she committed suicide in 1941 at the age of 59. Next, let us see about the novel A Room of One's Own. A Room of One's Own is an extended essay by Virginia Woolf, first published on 24th September 1929. The work is based on 2 lectures Woolf delivered in October 1928 at Newnham College and Girton College. The dramatic setting of this novel is that Woolf has been invited to the lecture on the topic of woman and fiction. She advanced a thesis that a woman must have money and a room of her own if she is to write fiction. A Room of One's Own is an important feminist work and it also considered as the first major work in feminist criticism. A Room of One's Own is an important feminist work and it also considered as the first major work in feminist criticism. The essay is noted in its argument for both literal and figurative praise for women writers within a literary tradition dominated by men. Women also blamed women absence from history, not on their lack of brains and talent, but on their poverty. Woolf studied at the history of women's education and employment and argued that unequal opportunities for women negatively affect all of society. Virginia Woolf did not think much of her essays, maybe because they were commissioned. A Room of One's Own and Three Guineas are truly modernist in style. She argued that the aim of an essay was to give pleasure and not trying to inform or persuade the reader. A Room of One's Own is an exploration of the material and psychological conditions and historical constraints encountered by women writers. Virginia Woolf tries to explain the reasons why there had been so few women writers up to then. According to her views, women lacked her own space, a room of their own, and independence and a tradition. Besides this, they needed to get rid of the pressure of a patriarchal society. According to the thesis, that a woman must have money for her own if she is to write a fiction. So, in this novel, the narrator begins his lecture at Oxbridge College. Virginia Woolf starts the essay with "but" and affirms that she will be a number offer the expected answer. So, in this novel, but together with her doubts about the meaning of the commission topic woman and fiction as a shadow over her authority and lecturer. She speaks through several characters, Mary Beaton, Mary Seton, Mary Hamilton and Mary Carmichael. These characters, all of them are fictitious. The structure of the essay follows how Woolf came to her view about privacy and money. Woolf points out that there are several questions and approaches to the topic of woman and fiction. And the first one is pointing out certain women writers, and the second one, women and what they are like, woman and the fiction that is written about them. She will consider how these three approaches are inextricably mixed together. Next, we see the plot summary of chapter 4. Incandescence, the narrator relates, is a state of mind that simply would have been impossible for the woman in the 16th century. Virginia focus shifts to a consideration of women writers, both actual writers, one of the author's own creation. Woolf argues that women are different from men, and this has had an important effect on the development of women's writing. Women's lack of men's freedom to experience the world has constrained women's ability to create. In this chapter, there is a feminism focus. Woolf argues that women should develop an identity separate from men. She continues her history by tracing the gradual emergence of women writers out of that blank past. This is how the narrator accounts for the poetry of Lady Winchilsea around the turn of the 18th century. Lady Winchilsea would have written better if there was number hatched. Then she turns to the writings of Margaret of Newcastle, would have written better if she was in the present. Like Lady Winchilsea, she was an aristocrat, had no children, and was married to the right kind of woman. The letters of Dorothy Armstrong next of the shelf indicate a disdain for a woman who write and at the same time betray a remarkable gift in their own right with Aphra Behn. The narrator identifies a turning point of Aphra Behn and glorifies Aphra Behn in this novel. Aphra Behn is a middle-class woman making a living by her writing in defiance of conventions of chastity. The later 18th century saw droves of women following her example, and these paved the way for the likes of Jane Austen and George Eliot. All women together how to let flowers fall upon the tomb of Aphra Behn, for it was she earned them right to speak their minds. Woolf discusses Aphra Behn, the first English woman to support herself as a professional writer in the 18th century, who in turn were the forerunners of the successful women writers of the 19th century, Jane Austen, the Brands and George Eliot. Woolf concludes that women were more likely to write novels as women's training inevitably includes the observation. However, a woman's domestic role narrowed her range of experience and limited her creativity, therefore by social restriction that limit her experience. Novels are seen to reflect the value of real life. According to Woolf, only Jane Austen and Emily Bronte were successful in writing as women wrote expressing the values that are naturally distinctive to women. But in the 19th century, women were novelists. He says that the female writers now have extensive education. Women have their own style and manner of writing. Woolf argues that women's books should be shorter and more concentrated than those of men. Woolf praises Jane Austen, who had devised a perfectly natural, shapely sentence proper for her own use and never departed from it. Let us see the themes in the novel A Room of One's Own. First one, the importance of money. Second one, the objectivity of truth, gender inequality and interruptions. Analysis of this novel. Virginia Woolf's essay A Room of One's Own is a landmark of 20th century feminist thought. It explores the history of women in literature through an unconventional and highly provocative investigation of the social and material conditions required for the writing of literature. Woolf launches a number of provocative sociological and aesthetic critiques. She demonstrates her main message of empowering women to think and act freely. Her message is vividly clear because she is able to incorporate engaging and descriptive language throughout. Woolf speaks out against the traditional hierarchies in the content for her essay, so too does she reject standard logical argumentation in her essay's form. Woolf just writes a history of a woman's thinking about the history of thinking woman. Her essay is a reconstruction and reenactment as well as argument. Thank you.